Welcome to Native Lifestyle Balance Session 7, Tip the Calorie Balance. I'm Roz Barber with Cal Percy. We are your lifestyle coaches. You did a great deal during this past week finding the time to be active. We hope you are slowly getting comfortable with your activity goals. Starting a physical activity routine can be hard. If you stick with it, it will only get easier. Keep trying to just move it to build an activity habit for life.
Over the last 2 weeks, you started tracking activity in addition to tracking your weight, eating, and fat grams. Let's take a look at Betty's Keeping Track food diary from last week. Here's the back of Betty's Keeping Track book showing Betty's total for her weight, fat grams, and minutes of activity. Betty notices she was above her fat gram goal of 42 grams of fat on 3 of the last 7 days. These 3 days right here. Here is Monday, this last week from Betty's Keeping Track book. A day of your food record should look something like Betty's, where you have the foods you ate written down, and then your fat grams here, and then your activity down here. And if you notice through the day, Betty has done her fat gram totals. And then at the bottom, you see that by the end of the day, she ate 42 grams of fat and about 1,432 calories. Way to go, Betty. You are really paying attention to what you are eating.
Betty weighs 195 pounds today. Even though Betty has tried to push herself to get out walking, she thinks that activity has helped her to lose 1 pound over the last week. Betty walked for 75 minutes last week, so she didn't quite reach her goal of 90 minutes of activity for the week. Betty missed walking for 15 minutes on Thursday during her afternoon work break because she got a phone call from her daughter's teacher and she had to call the teacher back during her break. Sometimes unexpected events like this are the barrier to achieving our goals. When a barrier happens, try to think of a way to overcome the barrier. So Betty could have walked at her work break on Friday to make up for the walk she didn't do on Thursday, even though Friday walk wasn't part of her original plan.
Betty's physical activity graph. Instead of Betty beating herself up for not reaching her activity goal of 90 minutes this week, she is looking at the positive side of her activity. Betty walked 75 minutes this last week, so let's graph that. We'll put 75, here's 70. We'll put 75 right here. She did 60 last week, 75 this week, and then we put today's date down here. Your activity goal for next week is 120 minutes of activity. You might break the 120 minutes down into 30 minutes for 4 days of the week or 20 minutes 6 days in the week. Any way you do the activity over the week, try to reach 120 minutes of activity in the week.
During the last 6 sessions, we spent a lot of time talking about healthy eating and physical activity. We know that both of these habits are important for a healthy lifestyle and for helping to delay or prevent type 2 diabetes. Today, let's talk about balancing eating and activity to tip our calorie balance. A calorie is the amount of energy in the food we eat. Healthy eating puts calorie into our body, and physical activity helps us use up the calorie we eat. The calorie balance is the difference between the calories you take in through eating and the calorie you use up through activity. Just to make our body work, we also use calories. When we take a breath of air, each time our heart beats, we use calorie energy.
This teeter-totter is a good way to see the calorie balance. This piece of watermelon represents the food we eat in a day, or calories in. So we'll put it on this side of the teeter-totter. And this picture of a shoe represents the activity we do each day, or calories out. If we eat the same number of calories as we use in activity, our calories are balanced and we stay the same weight. If we eat and drink more calories than we use, our weight increases. The extra calories we eat are out of balance, resulting in weight gain. In the opposite way, if we eat fewer calories and fat grams than we use up in activity, our weight will decrease. Again, calories in and calories out are out of balance, but this time having the calories out of balance helps us to lose weight.
When you eat food, you take in calories, or energy. Calories in food comes from fat, carbohydrates, protein, and alcohol. The chart on page 3 shows how much energy is in different type of food. Fat has the most energy from calorie. 1 gram of fat contains 9 calories. Food that are carbohydrates and protein has 4 calories and 1 gram. Alcohol is also high in calorie, containing 7 calories and 1 gram. So Carol, let's play a game to show the calorie content of different type of food. In these cups, we have equal amount of oil, beer, shortening, sugar, water, and flour. Thinking about what we learned from fat having the most calorie by weight and carbohydrate having the least calorie. Line these up, which would contain the most calorie by weight to the least. When you are lining them up, tell me which type of food you think the cup holds.
Okay, so I think shortening is a fat, and fat has the most calories, so I'm going to put that first here. And then I'll put flour next, because I think flour is a carbohydrate, and I hear carbohydrates make us gain weight. This container of flour looks to me like a lot of calories from carbohydrates, so I'm going to put that next. I'm not sure about beer. So beer is an alcohol, and I was surprised that alcohol has nearly as many calories per gram as fat. But some ads on TV say that beer is a carbohydrate, so I think I'll call beer an alcohol and put that next in the line of calories. You know, not everybody drinks alcohol, but if a person does drink alcohol, I guess it's important to track the calories, since alcohol is a high-calorie food. Mm-hmm. Then I think I'll put liquid oil next. Oil's a fat, but it's healthy, so I think it doesn't have as many calories as shortening and beer. And then I think I'll put sugar next. I guess I'll put sugar next because there's only 2 things. And sugar's a carbohydrate. And finally, water has no calories and no fat. Yay, finally something I can drink. How would I do, Roz?
That's a good effort, Carol. You are right about the shortening having the most calories. Even though the liquid oil is healthier fat than shortening oil, still has 9 calories per gram. So equal amount of fat have almost the same amount of calories, so oil and shortening are grouped together as having the most calories.
Okay.
Since alcohol has 7 calories per gram, the beer comes next.
Okay.
Then the sugar and the flour are each carbohydrates, so they have the same amount of calorie by weight. We don't have a protein in this game, but if we did, we group it with the carbohydrates. You are right that water has no calorie and no fat grams, so water is a great choice of drink.
So this game's a good example of the calories we take in eating different types of foods. What's the amount of calories that we use up in activity, Roz?
On the bottom of page 3, we see that a good rule of thumb is 1 mile of walking burns up 100 calories. That mile of walking should be about 15 to 20 minutes pace to burn this many calories. In class today, we will use this shoe to represent a 1 mile walk that's equal to using up 100 calories. Sometimes we fool ourselves by saying, I can eat another piece of fried bread because I am taking a walk this afternoon. Be careful about thinking this way. We have learned that this 5-inch fried bread contains 8 grams of fat, and if we look at the fat counters, the fried bread has 281 calories.
Wow.
If 1 mile of walking burns up 100 calories, we need to walk 3 miles to use up the calorie we ate in that small piece of fried bread. If we walk 20 minutes, we would need to walk for 1 hour to balance the 281 calories in the fried bread and tip the calorie balance.
Certainly we should eat both calories and fat because our bodies need them to stay healthy. Calories give us the energy to function. They fuel everything we do, even breathing. The number of calories we use during activity depends on several things. The type of activity, whether it's light, moderate, or intense. Are we out for a stroll when walking or walking at a brisk pace? The light stroll burns up less calories than the brisk walk, but even light movement has health benefit. The amount of time you are active is the second thing. Usually the longer you are active, the more calories you use. The third thing is how much you weigh. A heavier person may use more calories walking for 10 minutes compared to a person who weighs 50 pounds less. Basically, the amount of energy or calories we use up in activity is determined by the amount of weight our body is carrying and the distance we carry that weight.
There are some good pictures of food and activity balance on page 4 of your handout, right here. The idea is to lose weight and maintain the weight loss by reaching a new calorie balance at your new weight. If we starve our body for a period of time, we will lose weight. But as soon as we start eating again, we will regain the weight quickly. That is because we never allowed our body to achieve the new calorie balance. We believe 1 to 2 pounds of weight loss in a week is the best way to achieve a new calorie balance.
So let's use our piece of watermelon on one side and then this on the other, and this represents your new calorie balance after you've lost weight. This is a model of 5 pounds of fat. This really is the color of fat in our body.
Wow, Carol, and this 5 pound is heavy. It could go here and you'll be walking around like this, or it could go, you'll be carrying it
That's
right
where mine
here.
is.
Okay, this is a lot of fat, it's heavy.
Yep, at lesson 2 we learned that 1 pound of fat equals 3,500 calories. So to lose this 5 pounds of fat, we have to tip the calorie balance by 17,500 calories. This information is on this page. This is why it's so hard for us to lose weight. That 17,500 is a lot of calories to change. Think of how easy it is to overeat calories when we don't pay attention. It is much harder to stay aware every day of what we eat and how active we are to decrease these calories in a healthy way. So let's go back to thinking about losing 1 pound of weight in a week. To lose 1 pound in a week, we need to tip the balance by 3,500 calories that week. To make 3,500 calories easier to think about, divide 3,500 by 7 days in the week and think about tipping the calorie balance by 500 fewer calories each day over the next week.
Remember, the best way to tip the balance towards losing weight is to decrease the food intake and increase the activity. Try not to eat less than 1,200 calories each day to be sure you are getting the nutrition you need.
That is a good point, Roz. Now let's use Betty's keeping track book on a day she ate more than 42 grams of fat to see how Betty could tip the calorie balance. On Saturday, Betty ate 64 grams of fat, 22 grams of fat over her goal. Betty did no activity on Saturday because she was at her kids' sporting events all day, and then the family went into Farmington to shop. If Betty had a do-over of Saturday, how could she reduce by 500 calories to move towards losing 1 pound in a week? I'm going to use this keeping track practice page from lesson 1 to demonstrate how to tip the calorie balance by 500 calories. So first thing I'm going to do is write 500 down right up here. Betty and her family went out for pizza on Saturday night. In addition to eating 2 slices of supreme pizza, Betty ate 4 breadsticks. She also had 2 16-ounce sodas with sugar in the soda because she hadn't drank a soda in 6 weeks. So Betty thinks about what she could have done differently if she had a Saturday dinner do-over. Betty thinks she could have switched to water after the first soda, so she would have drank 16 ounces less of soda. This simple change would have saved 200 calories. So I'm going to write 200 calories for getting rid of 16 ounces of soda. And then if you subtract the 2, then Betty has 300 calories left to tip the balance. Betty remembers on Saturday morning there was a break between her kids' games, and she just sat in the car while the kids played. She could have taken a 20-minute walk between games, and that walk would have used up 100 calories. So if she had walked, that would have used up 100 calories. And now she has 200 calories left to tip the balance. Let's look at her keeping track book again for Saturday. So Betty only ate 2 pieces of the supreme pizza, and she isn't willing to eat less than 2 slices because this is much less pizza than she ate before Native Lifestyle Balance. But Betty also had 4 breadsticks. Betty was surprised that each breadstick has 130 calories and 4 grams of fat. So she tips the final 200 calories in her redo of Saturday by eating 2 breadsticks instead of 4. This saves Betty 260 calories. So you subtract 260, and now she's up 60 calories that she has tipped the balance, an extra 60 calories. So this 260 calories has allowed Betty to tip the balance of 500 calories for Saturday. So I hope you can use this example to think about how you might tip your calorie balance.
We are nearly halfway through the 16 Native Lifestyle classes. Since we are finishing Lesson 7, to congratulate ourselves, we want to use the handout on page 6 to think about the changes we have made so far. First, think about what changes you have made to be more active. Betty went from no walking to 75 minutes of walking each week. Betty has also stopped circling the parking lot at the grocery store, looking for the closest spot to the door. Instead, she parked further from the grocery store door, so she is more active walking into the store. Next, think about the changes you have made to eat less fat and fewer calories, and write them on your handout. Betty finds it amazing that she is eating 42 grams of fat and less on some days. She remembers the first week she kept track. She ate over 90 grams of fat in a single day. Betty knows she is eating more fruits and vegetables, especially salad with fat-free ranch dressing to help tip her calorie balance.
I got to keep up with you, Roz. That's a lot of changes Betty's made. Next, we want to look at your How Am I Doing graph for weight and fill in this green box right here. So here's Betty's How Am I Doing graph. Her starting weight was 200 pounds and her 7% weight loss goal is 186 pounds. And today she weighed 195 pounds. So right here, we're going to write Betty's weight at the start of the program, and that was 200 pounds. So write your weight at the start. What's your weight today? For Betty, it's 195, so I'm going to write that right here. And to determine what your expected weight is now, you want to look at the line where you graphed your weight for this week, and then where your 7% weight loss line crosses this column is what your expected weight loss would be. So for Betty, here's 195, 96, 97, and we go across. So her expected weight loss is about 196.5 pounds. So right here, I'm going to write that Betty's expected weight is 196.5 pounds. So then you assess for yourself how you are doing at this point in time in Native Lifestyle Balance. If you've stayed at the same weight or gained weight, then check this box right here. If you've lost some weight but not as much as expected, you check this box right here. And for Betty, weighs 195 pounds now, and her expected weight is 196.5 pounds. So Betty has lost as much weight as expected or more, and so Betty's going to check this box right here. If you checked off one of the first two boxes up here, you could add looking up calories when you're looking up your fat grams. So you can find the calorie column right next to the fat gram column. So in your fat counter, here's the fat gram column, and the calorie column is right next to it.
No matter which box you check, give yourself credit for completing session 7 of the Native Lifestyle Balance. Let's look at page 7 and 8 for your to-do list for next week. Right here. Keep track of your weight and eating and activity. Make a plan to be active for 120 minutes this next week. Be sure to write down only the activity you do for at least 10 minutes. Write down some activity choices you can do throughout the day, like Betty's example of parking further from the grocery store entrance. Practice tipping your calorie balance this next week by eating less and increasing activity to use up at least 500 calories each day.
Our next session is called Take Charge of What's Around You. We will be talking about people and events in our lives that stand in the way of healthy eating and physical activity. And we'll talk about how to deal with these barriers. See you next week for session 8. Hagone!